Greetings, this is Pastor Mike of Southern Oregon. We're doing a video test here. The reason we're doing that is I had earlier written on Facebook that we're having a little trouble with our other camera, and it has to be sent back to the manufacturer. They have to work on it and then they'll send it back to us, but it's going to take probably 3 to 4 weeks to do that. So we didn't want to be unable to make videos, so we got the use of a backup camera so that we could keep making videos, and we're testing out that camera right now. I decided that if we're going to go ahead and test this camera anyway, I might as well say a few things, because that would be a wise use of the time. Now, today's date is March 1st, 2019. The code number for this particular recording is going to be code 2019V for video 0008. So let me move on now to talk about the disclaimer, and we'll get that out of the way. The information provided herein is for educational, truth, and knowledge purposes only. No specific course of action is directed, means I'm not telling you to do anything in particular, except the advancement of knowledge and truth. I now state and clearly declare that I am addressing the subject matter set forth herein as a pastor of God in my religious and ecclesiastical capacity and office, and that I am exercising my official function to keep religious believers informed of their various freedoms, rights, and liberty under God and relative to their awareness and understanding of the various laws of man. Therefore, I hereby declare, claim, and assert any and all religious protections of whatsoever nature and kind, including protection from discrimination on the basis of religion, available under the inherent, inalienable, primary, and subordinate rights and laws. The Remnant Church in Southern Oregon, Mike Benjamins Jr., pastor, in both his personal and ecclesiastical capacities, including his subordinates and personnel, individually and jointly disclaim any and all liability and or responsibility for any damages sustained or suffered by the readers, viewers, or other entities in the implementation of the teaching set forth in this video. The material is provided as a research project only, for learning purposes only, and any implementations and or applications contrary to my various cautionary statements, which I make from time to time, are undertaken at the sole risk and peril of such readers, viewers, and entities. No statement is made or implied as to the ultimate outcome resulting from such implementation or applications. Okay, here in Oregon, as you know, you probably figured anyway that this would happen. They're continuing with their anti-gun attempts to get some anti-gun legislation passed here in Oregon. They've got another bill before the legislature here. It's a House bill. It's numbered HB 3223. Seems they're just going to go ahead and continue these efforts until they finally get some anti-legislation passed. And I'm going to talk a little bit after we address what's in this legislation real quickly. My son's going to come in and tell you a little bit about this House bill. And after that, I will address some other matters of what we might be doing in the meantime to counter some of the things they're up to. So with that, I'll let Rick come in here and talk to you about HB, the new House bill. 3223, I believe it is, right?
House Bill 3223.
Okay, go ahead and tell us about it.
Good evening. The main focus of House Bill 3223 is a registration act. It requires the registration of all weapons that are deemed assault weapons. They have a very long list of weapons here that qualify. Essentially, almost every semi-automatic rifle would qualify, and some semi-automatic pistols that have pistol grips or where the magazine loads outside of the handle well. Most your typical handgun, semi-automatic handgun would not qualify. So, almost all semi-automatic shotguns would also qualify for this gun registration. And there is one notable exception, and that's guns that are specifically designed for the Olympic Games or international shooting competitions. There are some specialty-made guns in that class that would otherwise potentially qualify as assault weapons that are exempted for people who shoot in the Olympics or international shooting competitions. There are, once they're considering this an emergency bill, meaning that the minute it is signed, if it does get signed and voted in and signed by the governor, then it would go into effect immediately. Mm-hmm. You would have 1 year from the time of registration, from the time of the law being passed, to register your assault weapons. There are a few exemptions to that. If you permanently remove the assault weapon from the state, if you sell the assault weapon to a federal firearms dealer, if you turn the weapon into law enforcement that will destroy it, or if you render the assault weapon permanently inoperable, then none of those qualify. A person, you can, if you pass or something, a person can inherit or be bequeathed a firearm, provided they're legally allowed to own it. They can pass the criminal background check. They would have 1 year to register it in their name. Outside of that, there would be no ability to transfer that weapon to any other person. Okay. Once this bill goes into effect, all future sales of assault weapons that are on this list would be banned. There would be no more future sales of these assault weapons. Okay. The ban does not include specifically anything about magazines, other than assault weapons with fixed magazines. They can take no more than 10 rounds at a time. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Do you get the feeling from this House bill that they're broadening the scope of what assault weapons means?
Yes, there's a lot in here that's been around for a while now that they're calling assault weapon. For example, any semi-automatic weapon that's less than 30 inches long, any semi-automatic weapon that has a flash suppressor, or any semi-automatic weapon that has like a pistol grip, any shotgun that has a pistol grip, even though it's like a 12-gauge shotgun with a pistol grip, is no different than a regular 12-gauge shotgun with a shoulder stock, but the weapons themselves are identical. However, the one with the pistol grip would be unlawful.
So I got a question for you. Let's say a guy out there, your average Joe, he's got a 22 rifle, the average 22 rifle that's out there. Sometimes it has that tube on the bottom.
Yeah, the tube-fed type Marlin is one of the guns that would most likely be exempted, but it's one of the only type of semi-automatic rifles that would be exempted.
Okay.
Like I said, there's a very long list here, and most of the popular semi-automatic weapons would be. I believe like that Marlin 22 with the tube, because it's got a permanent tube, even though I think it'll actually hold more than 10 bullets,
it will.
is actually, I believe it's exempted for the one of the main reasons, because it's not a centerfire weapon.
It's not a centerfire.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Do they make a distinction between centerfire?
Yeah, they're
and
specific.
rimfire?
Yeah, they're specifically going after centerfire weapons here.
Oh, they're going after centerfire.
Yeah. However, I do believe that the Ruger 1022 was on here, although I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that.
Okay. Well, can you just say, give us an idea of because you're reading from the bill itself there.
Yes, right here.
Yeah. Give us an idea how this is going to affect, if it passes, how this is going to affect the average Joe out there. How's it going to inconvenience him?
I don't know exactly how many of these type of weapons are in circulation in Oregon, but it's estimated that there's more than 100,000. I would say the number is significantly higher than that.
Yeah.
And the amount of crimes that are committed with these type of weapons is in Oregon is virtually non-existent. There is occasionally a homicide with an assault weapon, but the vast majority of homicides committed in this state with firearms or with handguns that are not a part of this registration.
So the average, would you say that the average person, the average gun owner here in Oregon anyway, the average gun owner that you've run into, I've run into, is going to affect them, right?
It's going to affect every gun owner that has a weapon like this. They will have to register it, get rid of it, have it destroyed. They can, if they pass or in their will, they can bequeath it to somebody as long as they're legally allowed to own it. But outside of that, the transfer of that weapon would be unlawful in any case, and the purchase or registration of any new one would be unlawful as well.
So you and I would agree then that this is an infringement of the right to self-protection and the right to bear arms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. What I'd like to do now, like I said before, on this kind of anti-gun legislation, they're going to keep this up. They're going to keep this up. They're going to keep bringing it. They're going to keep resurrecting until finally they get some kind of legislation passed into law. The question is what is our counter to that? What are we going to do about it? Now, I do go into this in my videos that I've done before. I specifically would point you to, if you haven't seen it already, I would point you to the video that I did called The Awful Truth About Voting. It's a 2-part video. If you haven't seen that, make sure that you do watch it. What I said in that video was that we have to, I said, for instance, in that all the jurisdiction exercised over you comes from you. So it is assumed that you agree with the legal condition that's being created, which allows them to subject your inherent and inalienable rights to a majority vote. And it's assumed, I call it here presumed consent. They presume they have your consent to do that. Therefore, you must object in a timely manner. And I had spoken in that video, in the Awful Truth About Voting video, that this objection needs to be in writing. It needs to be a legal notice that is sent in telling the state that you withdraw your consent, that allows them, that makes them think that you consent to this. You have to withdraw your consent to subject your inalienable and inherent rights to a majority vote. And that has to be done in a timely manner. It has to be done very clearly. So what I'm going to do for myself, and my son will have to decide whether he's going to do it for himself, because I haven't actually sent one of those notices in even for myself. I did not think that we were going to be facing the specter of these laws coming online on the books this soon. It does appear that it's not going to go away, and it is going to happen. And you're a lot better off if you file one of these notices with the state, informing the state that you withdraw any consent that they assume they have from you, and they may have had your consent in the past. Now, I want you to realize that the state has a right to be notified of this. If you don't say anything, because silence, as I said, silence denotes agreement. If you don't say anything, they have every right to assume that you agree to this, that you're okay with having your inherent and inalienable rights subjected to a majority vote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draft this paperwork. I'm going to call it of a withdrawal to consent legal notice to be filed with the state. And it will, of course, be sent by certified mail, return receipt requested. And what the purpose of this notice is, it's not just to notify them. It's not just to tell them that you withdraw any consent they thought they may have had. It also serves the purpose of providing you with evidence, so that providing you and me, of course, if you were to do it, then it would be for you. But in my case, it provides me with evidence when I go to court. Let's say this law comes online, and then they go forth and try to get everybody to comply and try to apply the law to people. Well, when they finally get to me at some point, then I want this paperwork that I sent to the state, this notice that I sent to them, I want to have that with me so that I can say, I withdrew my consent. It's a pretty powerful piece of evidence that I want to take to court with me when I challenge the application of this law to me. Because I'm going to, of course, claim that my inherent and inalienable rights are not something that can be voted upon without my consent. And if I don't give my consent, then we are going to apply some other legal strategies to make it known to the state that, you know, they may be able to do this to people who are okay with it, but they can't do it to everybody. Now, like I said, I explained a lot of this in my Awful Truth About Voting video. I'm not going to do it again here, because you can go ahead and watch the video and then you'll understand what I'm talking about. The scope of the withdrawal of consent is important, and I want to talk about that for a minute right now. You see, we're not withdrawing all consent for whatever the legislature may vote on. We're not doing that. We're withdrawing, see, that's a pretty broad spectrum of things that they do. We're withdrawing consent to subject our inherent and inalienable rights to a majority vote. That's all we're withdrawing. I don't want you to get confused about what it is that you're withdrawing. You're withdrawing a narrow scope of things. In other words, we want to make it clear to them, this is something that applies to our inherent and inalienable rights. And of course, I have another video which talks about inherent and inalienable rights, and you want to watch that too, so that you'll know some of the other inherent and inalienable rights that this applies to. One of the most important inherent and inalienable rights is your right to have an actual access to the sovereignty and jurisdiction of God, so that you can have a real relationship with God. It's one of your most important inalienable rights. And that, of course, will also be covered by this, because it's not just for the right of self-protection. It's not just for the right to keep and bear arms, but it is for these other inherent rights that you hold. Now, where should this legal notice be filed? And of course, I said, of course, it'll be filed by certified mail, return receipt requested. Here in Oregon, the notice is sent to the Department of Justice, and our capital here is up in Salem, so it'll be sent to Salem, Oregon. And they are authorized to receive such legal notices on behalf of the state of Oregon here. So I would assume that wherever you are, if you're not in Oregon, then you would have to file if you filed such a notice, that is, I would assume that you would have to file it with your Department of Justice in your state. Now, I want to clarify also that when you or I or whoever would file such a notice, if such a notice is filed, you're not looking for a response. You're not looking for them to say yay or nay to anything. You're not looking for them to say it's okay for you to file this, or it's not okay for you to file this. Nobody knows exactly how they will react to it, for the simple reason that a notice like this has probably never been filed before. This is a strategy and a plan that I developed here at the Remnant Church. So we don't know exactly how they'll react to it. I suspect that they will react negatively to it. They will say to you, if it was you doing it, if it's me doing it, I got a good idea how they're going to react. They might say things like, this is frivolous, this is specious, this is without merit, this doesn't mean anything. They might even send it back to you. They might throw it in the trash can. They might do all kinds of things. That's not what's important. That's not what's important. What is important is that you have proof that you sent it to them and they received it. That's what's important. So don't be hung up on any kind of response that you're expecting from them. You're not expecting any response from them. It doesn't really matter what they say. The whole point of this whole process and procedure is to say, I served notice upon the state. And I'm going to, in my particular notice that I send in, I am going to go ahead and say, I don't need a response from you. And I will actually tell them, no, I only did this so that I can say that I served a notice upon the state, and it may be used in a court of law later on down the road. And so they'll have an idea of they don't have to respond to it. Because I've been through some of this before, and I've gotten some crazy responses from people. You know, they've actually thrown them in a trash can. They've actually, in the past, they've actually sent stuff back to me. They've actually told me that I couldn't do it and this and that. I'm not looking for permission from them to do it. I'm not looking for that at all. I am just simply serving notice upon the state, and I don't want you to get confused if you were to watch me go through this process about what's happening there. Don't want you to get confused. I want you to understand what the purpose of all of this is. All right. I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, I'm going to write up a notice like this. I will be doing it for myself, and I will most likely post it on Facebook so that you can take a look at what I'm doing for myself. And, then you can at least know what I'm up to up here and what it's about. So if you watch my videos and stuff, you'll have a pretty good idea. And I kind of want to keep you up to date on what's happening. Okay, I want to talk about one other thing. There are people out there who will think to write their state representatives when these laws come up and ask them to vote against the anti-gun legislation on their behalf. Well, this will not work for you because, again, you're saying it is a proper subject or issue to be voted on. So be careful about doing that. If you're unclear on that, again, I tell you, go to my Awful Truth About Voting video, and it'll clarify that for you. Then there is this "I won't comply" trend of statements. Rick, kind of what are they doing out there with this?
The phrase "we will not comply" has recently been made very popular. And the gist of it, from what I can tell, is that the people are just saying, if you pass these laws, we won't adhere to them, we won't obey them.
Uh-huh. And is that just the people who's saying this?
The vast majority of people that I've seen that are just pro-gun.
Pro-gun.
Yeah, they're just saying, well, if they're going to pass these laws, we won't comply with them.
Have any police officers said they won't comply? That you
I
know?
haven't spoken with any.
I haven't spoken to any. Okay. All right. Well, see, it just won't work to say, well, I'm going to wait till the law passes, and then when it does pass, I'm just not going to comply with it. This is more or less a "don't tread on me" approach. You see, well, if the law passes, that's not a good strategy. We should look at this as a golden opportunity to speak to and testify to the truth. This is our chance. This is an opportunity to assert why our inherent inalienable rights should not be subjected to a majority vote. It may suggest to someone things that hadn't occurred to them. It is part of our chance to be heard. And I believe that any opportunity to tell the truth, any opportunity to say, hey, look, this is wrong, is important. Even if you were to argue, you say, well, this is probably going to fail. Well, first of all, I'm not in the business of having things fail. But anyway, even if we were to go down that road for sake of argument, let's say that it's to fail. I would rather, post-failure, I would rather be able to look in the mirror and look at other people and say, I did what I could. I spoke up. I told them why my inherent and inalienable rights should not be infringed. I told them why. I told them that it should not be subjected to a majority vote. And I did the things that I had to do. I said what I had to say. I would rather that, even if it did fail. But I'll tell you something, I believe that our inherent rights are not going to be that easy to sweep out the door. And of course, it helps a lot if more than just one person asserts these rights. And, one thing that we are sorely lacking in America is unity. We've got a lot of loose cannons out there saying they won't comply, but there's no unity. There's no unity. We need to have some unity. We need to speak with the same voice together and say, these are our inherent, inalienable rights, and you're not going to infringe them, and they shouldn't be subjected to a majority vote. If we stand together, it's going to make a difference. Now, I'm not afraid to go at it alone. I've gone at it alone many times in the past. I've been on the courtroom floor many times all by myself without anybody else doing what I was doing. And I can do that. But I'm not so foolish as to believe that there's no power in unity. And I believe that we need to talk to each other. We that are concerned over our right of self-protection. We that are concerned about our right to keep and bear arms, adequate arms to protect ourselves and to hold on to our liberties. We need to talk to each other. You need to start communicating. You need to start seeing what other people think. Just today, I was out in town today. Just today, I asked a person, "Are you pro-gun or anti-gun?" And the person said they were pro-gun. And I ask people that when I go out in the town, even strangers. This is somebody I didn't even know, And I said, well, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about what's going on, what you've heard? And she says, oh, no, I'm pro-gun. And the thing of it is there's more pro-gun people out there, I believe, than we realize. But they don't know what to do. For some people to go at anything by themselves is just the scariest thing in the world. And we ought to remember that, because we need to talk to our neighbors. We need to talk to our friends. We need to talk to like-minded people and say, there's some guy up in Oregon called Pastor Mike, and he's actually trying to do something. And maybe we ought to hear him out. Maybe we ought to think about what he's saying in his Awful Truth About Voting video and take a fresh look at the issues. And I'm looking to you for help on some of this stuff. Now, I'm going to end this. I kind of get on my soapbox and then I'm too lazy to quit. But anyway, the thing of it is this is just a test of our camera to make sure it's working okay. But I took the opportunity to say a few things which I think are important. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to say to you, this is Pastor Mike. What?
Well, just one thing.
One thing?
Okay. Yeah, when you discuss, that we should assert our rights, and stand on that we do so, properly. We do not condone or incite anybody to behave rashly or violently.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good point. When I say that we do something, I certainly don't mean by violence. I certainly don't mean that we should do anything rash or impulsive or wrong. As busy as I am, if you're considering some kind of action that you have talked yourself into doing, perhaps somehow you need to get a hold of me and run it by me, and maybe I can say, well, if it was me, this is what I would do or wouldn't do. You see, in my opinion, this might not be a good thing. You see, so it's not always possible to get a hold of me, but I would rather that I had some input into some of this than to hear that somebody else went to jail or somebody else went to prison because they took off on a tangent that they need not have gone on. So yes, let's keep it sane, let's keep it rational. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to make the injustice visible. As Mahatma Gandhi said, he said, make the injustice visible, because sometimes it isn't visible. Make it visible. He proposed nonviolence to a certain extent. Yes, I do also believe in nonviolence, and I don't think. See, I was a police officer and a soldier, so I realize that nonviolence doesn't always work. But anyway, we won't get into all that. I'm saying let's bring our rights before those who are trying to take them away and say, this is why you can't do it. This is why you can't do. We have good reasons for saying that you shouldn't do this. Otherwise, they're just going to go ahead. And when they go ahead, before you know it, we won't have any rights anymore, and we certainly won't have anything to protect ourselves with. And we don't want that to happen. Okay, with that, I say, this is Pastor Mike of Southern Oregon, and I say God bless and take care. Thank you.